What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Real Heroes Show. You got Nick, Corey, and Shane with you as always. And in today's video, we are reviewing, breaking down, and talking all the spoilers on episode 4 of Foundation, which was entitled Barbarians at the Gates. We're going to be talking about the Empire plot, the Terminus plot, and then that crazy stinger that happened at the end. So if you stick all the way through to the end of this episode, we will get to that big teaser. Maybe we're going to come back to that next week. Gents, how are we doing today?
Doing well.
Yeah.
Doing well.
I'm pretty sunburned, if anyone can't tell, because
you're almost as red as the background of our little StreamYard chat here.
Yeah, I went to the Texas OU game this weekend, and it was a really long game and a heartbreaking game for me as a Longhorn.
Yeah, I saw the highlights from that game.
Sorry for your loss.
Yeah,
but hey, at least Texas A&M beat Bama.
No, that's just. My whole weekend is done.
You don't even care about Alabama losing?
Not when it's Texas A&M beating them.
All right, rivals.
There is no pleasing you.
Maybe this episode did, though.
Yeah, I think this episode did. I thought it ratcheted up the intensity quite a bit, moved a lot of the plot points forward, and created even more mystery, which I think is great. So let's dive right into the Empire plot. Shane, do you want to let us know exactly what happened on Trenton in this episode?
Trantor.
Is it Trantor? I'm sorry. Book readers are going to kill me. Yes. They're going to crucify me. I'm canceled. Oh, no.
Just blast Corey in the comments for calling it Trenton.
I'll respond to all of them.
But yes, so we got a nice little Empire plot in this episode. It seems like the showrunners are really leaning into the cloning aspects and what that means for the Empire. In this one, they show that the new Brother Dawn is slightly different. And as they kind of teased in the prior episode, he is, right off the bat, tries to jump off and kill himself. And is protected by the aura that surrounds him and stops kinetic energy. So they explain that a little bit. But also there's a couple other hints throughout the episode that, he's just a little bit different. He's drawing with his left hand. And then when the Shadow Master walks up, he switches hands and starts drawing with his right hand. So I think he's clearly feeling a little bit out of his element. He knows something's maybe potentially wrong with him. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be really interesting going forward.
Yeah.
But really the catalyst of this entire plot and what the drama in the Empire plot was the death of the leader and Nick, you'll have to bring up the name for me.
Yeah, it's Proxima Opal.
Don't mess with
Opal. Yeah.
So basically there was a death of this matriarchy planet, and their replacement, who is supposed to be this person that supports the Empire, there's a second person that this religious movement is trying to appoint. And this religious movement is called, I believe, the Luminism. It basically would explain that the Empire, because they are clones, do not have souls and are thus unfit to rule and not human.
Right.
So if that were to happen and they were to be appointed, then that movement gains strength. And that would threaten the rule of the Empire.
Yeah, I really like that whole heretical conversation, right? Just again, this episode with Lee Pace, he just absolutely kills it this episode. But yeah, you've got Zypher. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing this correctly, but it's Galat or Jalat. It's supposed to be the successor to the Proxima Opal, right? But it's a different Zypher, Halima or Halima. Mm-hmm. And again, it's sort of kind of interesting for that whole, kind of movement. In other words, so I'm kind of curious to see what'll actually happen. And again, what this translate to from the books. I'm sure people that have read the books will probably comment on it, which by all means is nice to. Yeah, it's just nice to read people's comments about how things are differing, or if there's any sort of parallelism in this where the show's going thus far as well. But just the idea with the analogy he gives about us being a glass, I think it's a glass shell. I love that. It was just a great metaphor because it speaks truth. Like he's not he's not bullshitting. You know, he's actually saying like, so what are we?
Yeah.
Because we are perfect incarnations, you know, creations of clones. So again, I think even then to say, well, a perfect soul is, you know, hard to say or hard to come by in essence, but especially as what we see here in this episode, why would one of them try to, you know, commit suicide or test the waters based on kinetic energy shielding or from that aura, right? So
Mhm.
it's really really intriguing.
Yeah, and it kind of like that's not the only movement that is brought up in this episode, right? Harry Seldon has created this movement. The
Yeah.
show is a lot about faith. Gaal talks about faith in the opening narration of the
Uh,
episode.
yeah, I have that
Uh,
quote on my notes that she
yeah,
says, "Faith is a sword forged in the fires of infinite." Like, I'm like, that's just a badass
pretty
line,
awesome.
dude.
Well, there's that, and there's also the line that Lee Pace says that martyrs tend to have a very long half life.
Yep.
Yeah,
When he said that, it was like bone chilling, man. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's the chess game that David
Yes.
Esquire has
Yep.
been talking about since the beginning of this show coming out. So
yeah,
really cool stuff there. I thought that the whole kinetic energy thing and the field was very interesting. I didn't really see it coming when the show opened up with Brother Don jumping off the building. I was like, oh shit, where are we going with this? And then he just stops. And at first I was like, oh, well, maybe it's like he's got like some mystical power type thing. But no, there's this force field around them all, because we see it with Brother Day as well when he's
Yep.
with the lady and he's trying to be intimate. And I thought that was interesting too, because it peeled back some character layers, and it's like, how closed off are they to the point
Yeah.
where, you know, someone touching them with one finger
Yeah.
is you know, to us, you know, like you hug a family member, you hold somebody's hand, whatever, like it's just like
Right.
normal everyday life shit. But for him, that's like a monumentous occasion. And then he got very very much blue balled by what's her name, the lady that's been with them forever. She's like, there's a very important matter that needs to be tended to, and he was like, no, go away, gotta get my fuck on. So it was really, really good stuff. And like you guys said, Lee Pace, he crushed it in this episode. It's really good.
Yeah, and I feel like if there's one purpose that this episode served, it's to make you empathize with the
Right.
Empire.
Yep.
Not only with, you know, that moment where he's trying to have sex with that girl, or when the Brother Don is trying to kill himself, but then later when Brother Day decides to go and leave Trantor, and he's talking to Brother Dusk and saying, you remember what you did, you have caused all of this,
Yep.
all of these problems, and it was because I was too scared, and I told you that. And because I was scared, you made a bad decision, so I'm never going to be scared again. He's
Right.
like, he's trying to, and you can see, we talked about this earlier, that like they are perfect clones of each other, but because of all of their life experiences, they all process things in different ways.
Yep.
And whereas the prior brother, he's Brother Dusk now, but prior Brother Day had that show of strength.
Yep.
This new Brother Day is trying to be not scared anymore. Like he's overcompensating and trying to be maybe a little bit more risky.
Yeah.
And we'll see if how that plays out.
Yeah, there's a line he says, you know, he says protocols have made us complacent.
Mhm.
And he's right. You know,
Yeah.
he's just kind of, and I think Corey, you mentioned this is if he's the iteration that starts to sort of change things or sees that there is something wrong, you know, much like, you know, they talk about the, you know, Harry Seldon's predictions, right? When the whole, you know, it can be accelerated, but can it be slowed? And just, you know, as he's pointing out the previous, you know, renditions failures, again, which, you know, he says like, look, you're not going, you're going to stay here instead. So it's very, very cool to see the slight change. But I also wonder if this is sort of like the beginning of the legacy that he is trying to leave behind. And again, I don't know if this is how it is, because the books might be saying something completely different, or if this is the path. But as a first-time show watcher for this sort of book trilogy or series, it definitely, you know, kind of poses the question as to whereas you might kind of go on this path if because I'm not scared anymore, and whereas the previous rendition of me probably would have been scared, by making this decision and kind of vetoing it, this is what's going to help, shake things up to sort of prove, and maybe in an attempt to prove Harry wrong.
Right.
But yeah,
it feels like this rendition almost believes Harry more than the prior.
Right. Because
that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, it's like when he meets with the mausoleum of calculus,
Oh, that scene is phenomenal.
What a great! Oh god, it was definitely one of my favorite scenes in the episode. I mean,
he kills a man just by yelling at him.
He gives Tivoli a heart attack, but just by looking down and yelling at him, he just drops dead. I'm like, well, okay. And I mean, but he says like, oh, it's vanishingly like low, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, but it's not zero, which means there's still a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Saying there's a chance. Hashtag Dumb and Dumber. But that's what he thinks of them all right now. He's like, I've given you 30 years to figure this shit out, and you still can't.
Yep.
All of you are dumb as fuck.
Yep.
And Harry Seldon is a genius.
Yep.
As he's proving to be, even more as the decades pass and the iterations change. And it's just like, again, we're talking about, to think about this long game of chess. This is a hell of a long game of chess, and again, it's like the battle of the wits between a rotation of these Cleons against one man. But not to mention, obviously, more of what Gaal is going to go on as with her narrations and what she does. Like, I'm really fascinated by all this, and to see what I'm like. I'm not tired of her narrating everything, because it's polishing the story. Yeah. But I want to see more of the action with her.
I think her narrating also lets the audience know that a lot of these events are things that have already happened.
Right.
And we're playing catch up to whatever the current timeline and plot is actually going to be.
Right.
I also think it's very interesting with this Brother Day kind of bucking the trend and going off and trying to carve his own path. The assistant says at one point, no Brother Day has ever left the bosom of the city or whatever before. Yeah. So this is the first time you're going to see the Lee Pace iteration of this character go off and do something else. And I think that's really interesting because, no matter how powerful or strong you are, look at Thor in the first Thor movie. A fish out of water is a fish out of water, right?
Yeah.
So you take them out of their element, it complicates things, it adds tension, it adds drama, and I think that's I think we've got 6 episodes left for the season after this. I think there's a lot of time to kind of explore where he's going and what he's going to do, and the fact that he basically made Brother Dusk kind of stew in his own failure. And he's like, no, you can't run from this. You just have to stay here. And the fact that all these people are dead and it's taking forever to rebuild, that's on you. And I'm going to make you stare at that all day. Yeah, it's pretty cruel, which I don't think we've seen previous iterations of this character do that to their brother, all that often, which is really fascinating. And I don't really know if it's setting these guys up to be villainous or if they're just like kind of cold, soulless leaders or what, but it's fascinating to me. I think it's kind of different from a traditional story.
Yeah, and I think I'll say this real quick. With Brother Don, right, when the girl from the garden, hopefully I don't completely botch her name, but it's like Azura Odili. I thought it was funny because he even says like, is it Odili, and she says it. But she's just like I'm your gardener, Samwise Gamgee. And like she's like, it's wolf's breath, like it's good for healing and everything. And then he takes a leaf and gives it to I forget her name, but it's someone that he obviously advises.
Yeah.
Right. And he's
That's
like,
a good little character moment.
Mm-hmm. Eat this. And I'm like, he says, if you're still alive in a couple of days, then bring me some.
Bring me some.
Right. And I'm like, that's kind of cruel,
Yeah.
It's like if someone said, hey, Nick, eat this. If you don't die, give me some more.
I read that differently. I mean, realize that that's what he's doing. But I actually read that as kind of a cool moment because
I mean, it
it
is.
explains how disconnected he feels from anyone. He doesn't trust anyone at all.
Yeah, but I also think because of that, because he's right. So I'll piggyback on that. Because he is establishing some sort of trust with this girl, you know, he's using a dragonfly drone
Yeah.
to look at her. So
Mhm.
he's obviously crushing on her, right?
Oh yeah.
You know, and he kind of sees you know, the Shadow Master, Obrecht, kind of walk by, and he's kind of watching the Shadow Master too. So I'm almost wondering if he trusts or doesn't trust him as well, because I don't know. I kind of got like a not like a creepy vibe from that dude, but you know, I don't know. Maybe there's more to him in the book than what we're being led to at this point in the season. So
Well, which person were you
the
referring
Shadow
to?
Master
Oh,
Obrecht.
gotcha. I
Yeah.
don't know if that character's in the book at all. It
Well, yeah,
wouldn't
that's what I'm
surprise me if
saying.
he
So
wasn't.
if he's just kind of completely new, but
I got such Gladiator vibes from this
Mhm.
whole episode.
Yep.
oh yeah,
Fun
yeah.
fact about Gladiator is the original emperor in Gladiator is played by Richard Harris,
Yeah.
who is
Uh-huh.
Jared Harris's father. So
Yes.
little
Okay.
Gladiator to Foundation connection there.
And he's good old OG Dumbledore.
Yep, he is.
Oh, you're
So-
right.
That is cool. Yeah, but lots and lots of tension, more mystery, more questions, which I think
Absolutely.
has kind of been the theme of this show so far, which is interesting. For the sake of time, let's light speed skip over to Terminus. The prior episode ended with the Anacreans showing up at the wreckage of the old ship that's being salvaged,
Mhm.
and then in this episode they basically they want a navigational chart. They want to be able to chart their path through the galaxy, but they can't do that because they don't have the resources yet. So they go to Terminus. They bring a lot of folks and they basically surround the entire city. We get some cool internal struggle there at the Foundation. There's even some talk about the predicted fall of the first Foundation,
Yeah.
as Harry mentioned it, which I think is really neat because they're basically like putting out a prophecy of exactly what's going to happen based off of all this math that we're talking about, which leaves things in a relatively hostile environment over on Terminus. Guys, what did you take out of this? Were you expecting action in this episode, or do you think it was good that they're holding off on it until maybe the next one?
I'm not expecting too much in this show. I think there will
Okay.
be tension, but not a lot of action.
I guess it really depends on if they're truly trying to do a sci-fi Game of Thrones, right? I mean, Game of Thrones didn't have non-stop battles, but obviously there were points of different seasons where there were bigger battles. But I mean, at this point, I think it kind of poses a question as to whether or not you know Harry's predictions of the fall starts with the edge of the galaxy. You know, is that coming true or not? But also the same thing with Salvor. Is she part of his plan as well?
Yeah.
You know, so there are multiple pieces, and again, if like depending on how you want to look at this or analyze this, is like, is this a chessboard or is it something else? Is this something more than a chessboard?
Right.
Because of the fact that you've got multiple pieces. It's like not saying that they're both pawns, but you know, the more important pieces that can do bigger moves, right? So, I mean, that's a big ass cannon to be, aiming at the fence.
It
And
sure is.
listen, you don't bring an army that size and a gun that big unless you intend to start a fight.
Yeah,
You know,
the whole navigational system story feels
like that was such a ploy. And even though it might be true, it's again like when you've got the Grand Huntress of Anacreon,
Yep.
you know, like she's not just some I'm not saying like by like a lower means of a lieutenant or a commander or
she's
a
not
captain,
just a foot soldier.
right? Like she is here.
She's their warlord.
When you wouldn't send someone at this stature to a planet like this or to invoke some sort of battle, right? You'd send someone much lower. And again, like I think that sort of history was really cool to see as Salvor was figuring it out through the interrogation.
Yeah,
ish.
so
Yeah, let's talk about Salvor.
what is your take on her? Because I couldn't tell if she was like a mind reader or
I have a
an
theory.
empath or like what Shane, go ahead. What's your theory? What do you think she's got going on?
So it's been hinted that she sees things before they happen. I mean, she clearly can. She's flipping the coin and she's calling the heads or tails each time. But we've also seen another character in this show that has done that, which was Gaal. In the first episode, she predicts a few things before they happen, first and second episodes. And so I'm wondering if this is like the lineage of Salvor is actually a little bit, more skewed than we think it is. I think she could be somehow related to Gaal.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they talked about like the embryos and stuff like that in the prior episodes. So it's possible that maybe some of her DNA was used to create Salvor, and that kind of explains how she explains the math and, has like the DNA signature in the vault, because maybe the vault was part of Harry's plan and it responds to Gale's DNA.
Right.
But because it's similar to the force field, it responds to Gale's DNA and no one else's. But if she has part of Gale's DNA in her, then maybe that's why she can go to the vault.
Yeah.
So definitely more there than they're letting on.
Yeah.
I agree.
Made the character more interesting this week too, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of that did a lot of good for her.
I'm guessing there will be a lot of complaints that she's a Mary Sue this early and just as good at everything right away. So we can call her Salvor Skywalker now.
No.
So that's what
I hope not, but at the same time, like I think in the event where again you put the pieces in the right order, like the breadcrumb trail of DNA in essence, it would make sense. The same thing where the vault doesn't have any sort of effect on her, much as she uses it to her advantage,
right?
And she like thanks it, So again, there's definitely more that she knows that we don't, which is to be expected. But I do think that I kind of had that same thought where she's got to be somewhat related to Gaal, or Harry knew something about her existing, and then again, her manservant, said, "Are you part of Harry's plans?"
Yeah.
So again, it's sort of like she kept saying, like, "Are you defying God's plans?" and all that kind of stuff. So she has this faith, and again, I think the same reason where she's the warden for a reason, like much like her father says, like we follow you, so lead us. So I think there's going to be this mathematical equation for winning or even kind of avoiding a battle here, and understanding the truth as to why Farah has come here in the first place, not just for some star map,
Right.
I thought it was interesting that they have Brother Dusk talk about the Foundation in this episode, because kind of weaving those stories together, saying like, go figure out what's happening out there.
Right.
And so now you've got kind of a ticking clock. You've got the Empire is coming here to figure out what's going on. So can they buy enough time until the Empire can get there? Or maybe the Empire comes and does something else entirely. But it's setting the plot in motion. I think this show is very complex and it needed a bunch of moving pieces to get everything going. And now we've got some clear plot threads that are going on.
Yeah, I think the first 4 episodes or so we're kind of we're going up the lift hill of the roller coaster, right? And we're establishing things and setting them up, and now we get to kind of go for the ride and see exactly where it takes us. And speaking of where it takes us, the last like 5 seconds of the episode, we didn't know what was going to happen to Gaal after the events of episode 2, where Raish did his thing and took Harry down and then threw the blade into the tube with Gaal. But it looks like she's in some cryogenically frozen stasis of some sort, and she's just kind of floating out in space. And I guess that there was some sort of ship that was coming to say hello. So very curious to see where that goes.
Wonder what prime number she's up to by now.
Do you think
It's
she
gotta
does
be a
that
lot, right?
subconsciously in her
Yeah,
sleep?
right.
No,
Very cool though.
Quintillions.
yeah, it was awesome to see that kind of come back. And I will mention another thing from that plot line was when Salvor sees the vision in the library. The kid is holding the knife that killed Harry.
Yep.
So definitely something going on there and I'm happy about that because we talked about how we got no answers for why that happened. And I think it might be the next episode where we finally get some answers.
So let's get into that. The synopsis for the 5th episode
I
states
haven't even read it.
a flashback reveals the origin of Gaal's conflict between faith and science. The standoff on Terminus takes an unfortunate turn. So maybe teasing a little bit of bloodshed there, or maybe the end of the first Foundation, depending on how that all goes, and a flashback to how Gaal maybe ended up getting Harry's attention, which would be pretty cool.
Interesting.
Which means we might get to see more Jared Harris and not just in like hologram form, which would be pretty cool too.
No, I think that's good too, because we kind of we said how we didn't know that much about Gaal. And so it's slowly, just little by little, giving us all of these character backstories and helping us relate to them. A lot of people have complained about the lack of emotional connection in this show, but I think it's getting there just very slowly. So now we have a good emotional connection with the Empire. We feel a little bit more for them. So hopefully we'll get the same thing with Gaal soon.
It is funny you mentioned that, Shane, with the emotional connection, because one of the things that David S. Goyer said in all the press interviews before the show came out was that the books are so void of emotion that they actually had to inject some into the show to make it more marketable to a wide audience. And there are still some people that saying that there's not enough. That's kind of fascinating. Yeah,
sci-fi is hard, especially hard no pun intended, but hard sci-fi, like Foundation,
where not Star Wars
sci-fi. Right. It is very hard to get emotion across when you're talking about so many scientific concepts. And so I think they've done a decent job so far. I don't really love Salvor as a character. I mean, she's interesting, but I don't find myself rooting for her. But I definitely feel the empathy for the Empire that the show is trying to get across. And I think we got a good little empathetic origin story with Gaal in the very beginning of the first episode. And I hope we expand upon that a little bit more. Because I think they're getting to the right place. And I was listening to the podcast. They have an official podcast where David S. Goyer goes on and with a couple members of his writing team and discusses the episodes. And he said that after the first 4 episodes, writing this show became a breeze.
Really?
Because they sort of established all of what all of these characters are, and they just let the characters kind of propel the story forward based on what they wrote.
That's pretty cool. I mean, if they want to come on here and talk about that, listen, I'm sure it might be easily as entertaining, if not more.
The co-writer of The Dark Knight Rises, please come join our silly little podcast that has 500 subscribers. Yay, we did it! More than 500. Woo! We got there. Really, really cool stuff. Though, and if that's the case, the next 6 episodes should be quite a bit of fun.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Very much looking forward to it. When this one ended, I was like, oh no, it's not Friday yet. Oh God. I'm ready to know what happens. So out of 10, I think I'd give this one 8.
Yeah, I'm going 8 as well.
That's what I was gonna say.
Solid 8.
A solid 8.
It didn't grab me quite as much as some of the others, but I liked how it kind of cranked up the urgency a little bit, which I think was really important for the show.
Yeah, this is the episode where it feels like an actual plot, an actual show. Whereas the first 2 were world building, it felt like. And the third one was kind of like I don't want to say snoozer, but it was a little bit of a breather. And then this one, it's we're going for it. Yep. I almost wish that we'd have gotten a little bit more of this in episode 3.
Right.
A little bit earlier, that jump started a little bit more.
Yeah. So what are you giving it out of 10, Shane?
8.
Cool. Nick?
8.
8. 8's across the board.
8,
I
8,
love
8.
it. when we make it nice and easy. So that's going to do it for this one. We're excited to see more. Also, congratulations to the Foundation team. Y'all got renewed for season 2, which is fantastic. That means that you'll get at least 1/4 of what David Esquire wants from his 8-season plan for this show. We'd love to hear from you guys. Drop us a comment below. Let us know your thoughts. Is this show too confusing? If you've read the books, get in there in those comments and tell us about everything we pronounced incorrectly and all the things that we've said that are wrong, because we love to correct ourselves and make fun of ourselves in the next episode. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so for free. Just like this video if you liked it. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click the subscribe button. We hit 500 way earlier than we thought, so 1,000's the next goal. Let's go for that comma
thank you.
in there. But if you have not subscribed yet, please do click on that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. That way you'll be alerted to any new videos, live streams, anything we've got coming down the pike. We're going to have a video coming out tomorrow recapping the entire season of What If and talking about some suggestions that we have for season 2. We've got some movie reviews. I think we're going to do No Time to Die at some point whenever I go see it. Halloween Kills comes out on Friday this week as well. All sorts of really good stuff coming to the channel, so please stay tuned for all of that. And God, don't even start with that. I can't even sleep at night right now because Dune is so close. I'm so fucking excited. Anyway, as I was saying, please stay tuned to all of those things and so much more. Until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video.
Peace.